2 days after the breach of the Capitol on January 6 last year, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz appeared on this network to say something that turned out to be completely correct. Gaetz said there is a liberal faction within the Republican Party's leadership that saw January 6th as a way to gain more political power for themselves. Watch.
Well, there's secretly been an anti-Trump caucus within the Republican Party in Washington for a while, and I'm concerned that folks like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger and others might view this as an opportunity.
Well, that turned out to be prescient, and it wasn't just an anti-Trump caucus. It was people who were opposed to Trump's voters and their concerns. So just 2 days after Gaetz said that, the House Republican leader, Kevin McCarthy of California, said that Gaetz's remarks were a physical threat because, like a liberal college professor, he believes that words are violence. And then another member of Republican leadership, Steve Scalise of Louisiana, suggests that Matt Gaetz has somehow committed a crime. Watch.
The other thing I want to bring up, and I'm making some phone calls to some members, I just got something sent now about Newsmax, something Matt Gaetz said, where he's calling people's names out, saying an anti-Trump in this type of atmosphere. And some of the other places, this is serious stuff people are doing that has to stop.
Okay, what did Gaetz say?
Gaetz brought up Liz specifically. I just saw that on Twitter.
And Adam, someone just sent it. Gonzalez just sent it to me, so I'm calling Gaetz. I'm explaining to him. I don't have much to say, but I'm going to have some other people call him too. But the nature of what, if I'm getting briefing, I'm going to get another one from the FBI tomorrow. This is serious shit. Cut this out.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's potentially illegal what he's doing.
Well, he's putting people in jeopardy, and he doesn't need to be doing this. We saw what people would do in the Capitol.
It's potentially illegal to criticize me? What are you, Taylor Lorenz now? Steve Scalise? What is this? In another recording, Kevin McCarthy suggests that Twitter should continue to censor Republicans, pull them off the internet. Now, he made that remark in a response to a tweet he didn't like from Alabama Republican Congressman Barry Moore, who was justifiably outraged by the death of Ashley Babbitt. Listen.
He tweeted at Marjorie Greene and at NARAL, I understand it was a black police officer that shot the white female veteran. You know, that doesn't fit the narrative.
What? Ow. Oh, man.
This is what we have to confront with this.
Can't they take their Twitter accounts away, too?
Well, actually, that claim turned out to be completely true, but truth is no defense. If you irritate the New York Times, Kevin McCarthy would like you pulled off the internet. This is the leader of Republicans in the House of Representatives. There are a lot of tapes like this. On another tape, McCarthy says he wished Donald Trump would resign, probably the least of his sins. Fox's Bill Malugin asked McCarthy about that. Watch the response. It's amazing.
You're on a call with House Republican leadership, and you're heard on that audio saying that you've, quote, had enough with President Trump and that you would tell him to his face it would be your belief that he should resign. Do you still stand by those comments?
Look, I never told the president to resign. It was a conversation that we had about scenarios going forward.
And regarding that audio tape, you had said the New York Times reporting on it was, quote, false and wrong. Then the tape came out. Did you lie?
No, because what was brought to me is said that I called the president to say that to resign. I never called the president to say resign.
So the thing is, okay, that's a lie, one of many. Here's the most depressing fact. So all the Republicans in the House got together today, and McCarthy, Scalise, they did not apologize for what they did, and they got an ovation. They got applause from members of the Republican conference. That's how brainwashed and addicted to McCarthy's money they are. Matt Gaetz is a Florida congressman. As noted, he was there today. He joins us now. Congressman, thanks so much for coming on. So you were accused by Kevin McCarthy, the guy who is in line to be Speaker of the House, of committing an act of violence by giving your opinion, by saying he was against the former president. Like, is speech violence? What do you make of this?
Well, I was just describing the facts. You had a group of people who were going to try to join with Democrats to impeach President Trump, and that is precisely what has played out. You mentioned he's in line to be Speaker. I mean, I don't know that Kevin McCarthy's in line to be Speaker. I don't know if the guy could get an account on Truth Social at this point based on the inconsistency between the recordings and what he says to us. And it is debasing for Republicans to give this guy a standing ovation after he smears Trump, lies to the country, and then tries to sick Big Tech and the DOJ on members of Congress whose views he doesn't agree with and whose factual representations are ultimately borne out. And the crazy thing about this, Tucker, is that it was all done for the sake of protecting Liz Cheney. I mean, at the time, I was protecting President Trump from impeachment, and Kevin McCarthy was protecting Liz Cheney from criticism. And now she is owning them with their own words. And maybe Liz Cheney has done us a favor because now, finally, you don't have to be a lobbyist with a $5,000 check to know what Kevin McCarthy and Steve Scalise really think. You know, I was upfront about the fact that I was going to politically oppose Liz Cheney. I went to Wyoming. I made my case there. This notion that you can have these sniveling calls and try to foment action against Republicans by Big Tech and the DOJ is not fitting of leadership.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, you can represent Republican voters if you're personally annoyed with Trump. Okay. But you cannot represent Republican leaders if you're calling on Big Tech to censor voices who criticize you, and if you're accusing people who criticize you of committing an illegal act of violence, as Steve Scalise did. Now, you saw Scalise today. Did he apologize to you for that?
He said he was sorry if it caused me any problems. But what I said to Steve Scalise is that if you accuse someone of potentially breaking the law, and by the way, he wasn't reacting to something. He raised the prospect of the illegality of my statement that Liz Cheney was anti-Trump. I know I really went out on a limb there, Tucker. But if you accuse someone of breaking the law, you have to say what law you think they broke, and you have to present what evidence you think you have. And if there is no evidence, you need to acknowledge that. And if not, then you're like maintaining this fiction for the sake of your own pride, and that's not what leaders do.
But what you're doing is reading the other side's script. I mean, listen to these guys talk, and they sound like MSNBC contributors. I'm so triggered. He criticized me. That's a crime. We should boot him off. We should censor him. I mean, they're equating speech with violence, calling for censorship, and describing disagreement as a criminal act. How is that not? How are these people not liberals? That's what liberals say. Like, what is this?
Well, you see, I will be the one criticized because people will say this is divisive. We should be unified against the Democrats. The problem is the Democrats win if Republicans take power and then think and talk and behave just like the Democrats. So I'm presenting an alternative vision, and it would be nice if the leadership wasn't the lagging indicator on these things. They were the last ones to realize that Liz Cheney should have been tossed out of leadership. I was out there making the case, and ultimately they caught up. But leaders lead from the front. They're not the lagging indicator.
Yeah, you just feel so sorry for Republican voters. I mean, no one's standing up for them. They're totally exposed. Some are still in jail. And the guy who's supposed to lead them to freedom sounds like a Joy Reid staffer. It's very distressing. And anyway, sorry. Mr. Gaetz, I appreciate your coming on tonight and for your willingness to be open about what you've seen. Thank you.
Thank you, Tucker.